Hello everyone, welcome to the Boleyn Lounge. I'm Jeff, good to see you all back here. I'm delighted to have my debut guest here in the Boleyn Lounge. Some of you might recognise him. It's Greenstreet Elite and Budgie. Welcome to the Boleyn Lounge, good to see you.
Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, it's good to be here, mate. What a lovely place you got. Lovely.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I guess I better get on and actually give these guys a bit of content. So I've got a few tags in the video line, and it starts off really with this club ain't run like a circus anymore. It's run like a proper football club, and we thank him for that. That was Mark Noble, 2016. Well, that hasn't aged too well, has it, Budgie?
No, not particularly, no. I think we've got more clowns now than we've ever had.
Yeah, it seems that way. And Chief Clown, in my book at least, I'll be interested in your views on it, is Sullivan. And he really is like the ringmaster general, isn't he? I mean, he wears that soppy hat like he's some kind of tin pot dictator. And he acts like one, doesn't he? Yeah. And yeah, he might as well wear a top hat to games, you know. He is the king of the circus.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he is one of the, well, I say one of, he's probably the most important part in the puzzle when we're talking about West Ham. And yeah, he's the one that's fitting all the pieces together. And unfortunately, he's not very dexterous at it. And he's just had a shocking couple of years. I mean, none of us have been very happy with the ownership since they first took over. But, you know, since David Gold passed away, and shortly before that, while he was ill, and Sullivan was basically riding, you know, the waves himself, it's gone to rack and ruin. It's just got worse and worse and more laughable, you know, and you know, some of the comments that they've made, and as you said, the way the man dresses, I mean, he should audition for the part of the child catcher in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang.
Well, the thing is, I mean, he's brought Tim in. Yeah, that was supposed to make us more professional, wasn't it? You know, and to stop his meddling. But I mean, if we look back over this January window, especially, it's got Sully's prints all over it, hasn't it? It's just crazy. All this, like, you know, 4 more games, you know, the fan divide. I'm sure he secretly he enjoys this. I think he sits back like some kind of puppet master, watching everyone fight over what he's doing.
Yeah, he's it certainly, you know, bears some thought going into it, because, you know, one minute everything looks like it's going the right way, looks like the club are picking up on, you know, picking up the momentum for being the club that we deserve to be. You know, I'm not suggesting that we could be Champions League winners in the next 2 or 3 years. You know, that's really unlikely. But you know, but it's no more unlikely than Leicester winning the league. I've got to say that. You know, I mean, we're in a decent position right now, and I'm going to have to get rid of that because it's doing my head in. I think the possibility of us doing that is very, very slim. But like I said, no slimmer than Leicester winning the Premier League. But you know, the thing is, he promised us Champions League football within 5 years of the move to the stadium, etc., etc. Lies, all lies, you know, or pie in the sky belief, you know, that none of us really. I don't think anybody, any true West Ham fan, really believed the words coming out of that man's mouth. I think
No.
we want to believe it, and you know, some of the right movements have been made. You know, some of the players that we've acquired over the time since our move. You know, we've brought in some potentially some extremely good players. We
Yeah,
just
we
haven't
have.
put it all together. We haven't put it all together. And wasting his time on a manager that doesn't change anything is really, really frustrating for us. But, you know,
Well,
there you
that's
go.
quite a nice segue, really, Budgie, there to move into the next bit that I'd quite like to talk to you about, which is the manager, David Moyes.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I mean, the in-out debate has been raging for some time, you know, amongst the fan base, and some are more vociferous about it than others, you know, and they really push hard. They want Moyes out for a long time, and based on the style of football, we can't really argue with that. Those arguments are all valid. Um, but also, I think we do have to recognise the things that he has achieved while he's been here. Um, you just mentioned it about, you know, promised Champions League football, one thing and another. Well, we haven't quite achieved that, but we have achieved 3 consecutive years in Europe for the first time in our history. You know, I know some people like to devalue the Europa Conference League win, say we should have won it regardless, etc., etc. But it doesn't take away the 6th place finish, the 7th place finish, the semi-final of the Europa League, which seems to get overlooked quite a lot in the conversation as well. That's almost forgotten that we got one step away from another European final.
Yeah.
And
Beaten by the eventual winners, I have to add.
and that's true as well. You know, whatever comfort you can take from that.
Yeah.
So, you know, in
That's the
several
only
years,
comfort you can.
yeah. So for
Yeah.
several years under Moyes, we can say we've had a relative amount of success for our football
Yeah.
club and for where we are and have been for quite a long time. And
Yeah.
we have to go quite a long way back to get anywhere near any kind of replication of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in our current predicament and having conceded 11 goals in our last 3 games, scoring none,
Mm.
and you've got Moyes in the press attempting to almost defend that with, oh well, we've got our highest scoring record that we've had at this stage of a season, and one thing another. I mean, it's a pretty idiotic time to be rolling out lines like that.
Yeah.
It's not going to
Agreed.
wash with the fan base, is it? So really, I'd be interested to see. Do you think that Moyes' position is recoverable from where he is here and the slide that we're on now, or is this genuinely going to be the end of the line for him?
My honest opinion is that I think he may be able to rescue the rest of this season, because I don't believe that the club are going to be foolish enough to leave ourselves out to dry with nobody to replace him. Now, that's debatable because a lot of people are saying, what about Johnny Heitinger,
Yeah,
etc. Now, that, you know, that they're valid points of view. But technically, if he sacks, well, if the board sack David Moyes between now and the end of the season, we're going to have an interim manager, which is never a good thing when you're challenging for silverware, which we still are. We're still in Europe, and we can still qualify for Europe by our league position if we don't win the Europa. It's still recoverable in that respect. I
yeah.
don't believe that David Moyes' position is recoverable, though. I
Yeah.
think he's lost too much of the fan base. Even those of us now. I wasn't a big believer in David Moyes. I was happy for the job that he was doing. So those of us that weren't actually big believers in him and so on and so forth, we all have to sort of take a step back and say, yes, we've achieved, unimaginable, really, success in that European win. I don't care if people want to devalue it. It's a European Cup or a European trophy. And anybody who says any different is just either negative or jealous because their club are never going to reach that standard. The people that are in the Champions League. I speak to a lot of Liverpool, Man United, and Chelsea fans over at my local pub, and every single one of them have all said to me in the past, "Congratulations on your club getting that trophy, mate. That's brilliant." you know, and we're talking about actual, proper Scousers. We're not talking about, Southern Liverpool fans. These are guys that have actually moved down from Liverpool, and these one guy in particular who came from Manchester, and we know the history between Manchester and London isn't great, but he was one of the first to come up to me and say, "That was a brilliant win for you boys," So, I don't think that the majority of fans out there do devalue it too much. Some
I
of them
think I
might go, "Yeah,
agree
but
with
it's
you.
yeah." I mean, there's sort of some value in people saying, "Yeah, but it's the third level of European competition." Yes, it is, but someone has to start somewhere, and you don't
Yeah, and
ever start at the top ever.
no, and if we all cast our mind back to that wonderful day out in Prague and leading up to that,
Yeah,
all the fans I spoke to of opposing clubs and one thing or another, I didn't get any negative vibes from any of them. All of them were wishing us well, wishing us to win that trophy, saying how great it would be for us. So,
yeah,
and so I think perhaps outside of we should have won that narrative, most people are
mm,
happy for us and wished us well in that tournament.
yeah,
But
yeah,
going back to the Moyes thing there, I agree with you about the interim thing because let's say horror of all horrors, and this could actually happen. We get spanked 4-0 on Monday by Brentford. I mean, Awoniyi strolled through our defence. And
yeah,
I know the Forest fans love him and all that, but he's just sort of a young Antonio. I actually don't think he's that good.
mm,
Not when you line him up against someone like Tony, who we're facing
yeah,
next week. And I think,
yeah,
in comparison, Tony is that good. And he must be rubbing his
y-
hands at the thought of playing us at the moment. So if we were
yeah,
to take
yeah,
an absolute hiding on Monday and Sullivan said, okay, he's going to pull the trigger, we're honest with ourselves. He's not going out and recruiting a manager or whisking a manager out of another job, is he? So
mm,
he's going to appoint Heitinger or Kevin Keane or someone like that is going to take
yeah,
the team to the end of the season. Now, in the current run we're in, we might say, well, we couldn't do any worse. And that's quite possibly true. But that's exactly where we're at, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. And I mean, like, people would be quite willing to throw many names into the hat for an interim manager. Some from within the club already, and that would be perfectly fine with me. But I actually believe that if we were going to do that, I think it would be worth us trying to get um, what's his name back, Irvine. Um, what was his blinking first name?
Andy Irvine.
Andy Irvine. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. I think it'd be worth trying to get him back as an interim manager. Look how well he did during that period when David Moyes had to take time off because of COVID. I mean, we didn't lose a game under him at all.
No, there was people
You know?
saying, "Don't let Moyes back," really, wasn't there?
I was one of them. I was one of them. You know, I mean, I was quite regular on West Ham Random at the time when Peach was still with us, and I was one of them voicing that opinion. Keep Irvine in the job. Keep him in the job. Don't let Moyes back, you know, because it changed the whole dynamic of the players that were in the starting 11 and the squad at the time. And, you know, I just thought it was a wonderful spell of football. So if we were going to have an interim manager, that's who I would like us to go and try and get as an interim manager. I'm not
Fair
saying
enough.
I've got other, you know, people in mind for the full-time job. There's two in
Well,
particular.
again, nice segue, because I want to talk about prospective new managers. So if we say that we broadly accept that Moyes won't get his contract renewed.
Yep.
And we're going to have a new manager. I've got somebody who would be my choice, ideal choice, if you like, who I think could do a good job for West Ham, and I'm happy to talk about that in a minute. But I understand that you've got a guy that you'd quite like, and I don't know, it might be a bit left field for some people. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Budgie?
Yeah. I mean, there are the obvious names that have been, you know, punted around, you know, including Jose Mourinho, Potter, and Clark, the one that was at Forest. No, none of those. I wouldn't accept any of them. I wouldn't even accept Thomas Tuchel. I would not accept any of those names.
I tend to agree with you on all of those, to be honest.
Thank you. However, the one name that I've put forward a couple of times in the past, the man that you're referring to, is Danny Blind. Now, people are going to look up in the sky and think, Danny Blind. You're familiar with Daley Blind, who played for Manchester United a few seasons back. It's his son. So his father, Danny, he is currently the assistant coach with the Dutch national squad. And the reason he's the assistant coach there is because who is it that's I can't remember who it is that's the manager now, but anyway, Danny Blind is the assistant coach at the national squad for Holland right now, but he's had some club experience. He's not had a great deal of success, but the clubs that he's been with haven't been bred for success, if you like. It's not like he went to Ajax or, you know, FC20 or anyone like that, because he's done most of his management in Holland, which in some respects is a good breeding ground for Premiership management, because the pressures are very similar in Holland. And, you know, it just sort of kind of works well. So Danny Blind, he's really good with the people that he works with. Like, I'm talking about the players now. Everybody seems to love him. They all seem to get on really well with him. But he is disciplined, you know, and all of his players say that, you know, his training schedule is disciplined and really useful. So, you know, he's a guy that I mean, I've never really seen any of the teams play that he's been like coach or head coach at, because I wasn't really looking at him back then. But it's only been over the last sort of 2 or 3 months that I've been looking at this guy, and I just think he would be perfect because he goes under the radar, but he gets results. You know, he does get results. I'm not saying he's a winner. He's not, you know, Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, but for a club like West Ham that are building, I think a manager like that would be very useful, and I think he would be quite successful with us.
Okay, interesting. I must admit, I don't know very much about him at all, and I'd have to get my Google out and look up about
on
him.
camera.
So,
Get your Google out on camera.
Maybe not. Yeah, perhaps not. No one wants to see that.
Yeah, no, X-rated.
I definitely have to do some research on that. But
Yeah,
interesting shout, Budgie. I've
yeah,
got a guy, if it come down to it, not as left field as your guy. I think there's probably lots of people would be a lot more familiar with my pick. And that would be Eddie Howe.
yeah.
And I
Good
believe
shout.
his contract might come to an end in the summer, and he may well be available.
Yeah,
And I'm happy to sort of give some background as to why I think he'll do a good job. So I think overall he did a really good job at Burnley, and I think Sean Dyche
you
inherited
mean
his side and
you mean Bournemouth?
at Bournemouth originally, but then he went to Burnley,
Oh
and
yes, he
Sean
did. Yeah,
Dyche
yeah,
inherited his side and then
yeah,
came up. But I think the basis of all the groundwork, I know Sean Dyche put his own stamp on that team eventually, but the initial success that they received for getting promoted and what have you into the top league, I think is down to the
Eddie
groundwork
Howe.
that Eddie Howe did there.
Yeah, yeah,
And then he went back to Bournemouth, and for the budget, for what he had available to him, he did a great job. I know the wheels came off there a little bit towards the end, but what I really like about him is he took some time out. And he went away and he said, I'm going to improve myself and I'm going to see what can I do to make myself a better manager. And I just think that's a really great thing and
yep.
sort of in complete conflict to the manager that we've got now that's like, what would you be without me? And I've won this and etc. etc. The narrative that he's pushing out. And some of the reason I think he'll be a good fit for West Ham is, well, I think he'll be open and work pretty well with Tim Stuyton and help to identify perhaps the sort of targets that he'll be looking at. I think
Yep.
he's got a good record of developing players. So, you know, if he brings maybe not so well-known players and dives for his pearls that people like to call him the pearl diver, I think he could improve those players. He works with the youth. He's not scared. He seems to get better, develop the young players and get a bit out of them, a bit like Harry Redknapp did with young players.
Yeah.
And from Sullivan's perspective, I mean, he's proved he can work on a budget. I mean, and that ticks a big box for him, I think.
Yeah.
And
to be fair, since he's been at Newcastle, he has become a top-class manager. You know, I mean, he was working under immense pressure at Newcastle. We all know what the pressure can be like at that club. I mean, they demand success on the terraces. They demand it. They don't want it. They demand it. And, you know, for a manager, a young manager, to step into a club like that and to get the results that he's been managing to get, and to, you know, he's got them into the Champions League last season for this season. I mean,
and I
tip
don't
your hat
think
to the guy.
I don't
I have
think the
to.
Newcastle fans would have expected that coming in for him to
Definitely
just
not.
come in and then achieve that and get the Champions League football for them.
Yeah. I think a lot of Newcastle fans would have said, if he'd have cemented us in top 8 in the first 3 years, that would have been probably the most they would have expected. Maybe a decent cup run here and there, but for the first 3 seasons, cementing top 8, I think Newcastle would have been happy with that. The fan base, and I do know 1 or 2 Geordie fans, so you know that I believe that Eddie Howe is a great shout. Actually, Jeff, I've got to be honest, he's a great shout.
Well, I quite like his honesty in interviews. He comes across to me, you know. If the team hasn't performed well, he says to the team. He doesn't necessarily dig out individuals, but he's happy to say that wasn't good enough today. He doesn't kind of sugarcoat things too much. You know, we expect more of ourselves, all of that kind of thing. And I really think his playing style, you know, it'd bring back perhaps a bit more excitement and an enjoyment for our fan base and get us
Yeah,
playing in a way that we will enjoy a lot more.
yeah. I mean, look at the job he's done with Joe Linton since he's been at Newcastle. He's turned a failed striker into one of the most devastating left midfielders in the Premier League at the moment. He's devastating at the moment. He's really, really good. I never thought I'd say that about Joe Linton.
Oh,
Imagine
does
what he
he?
would do with Lucas Paqueta or Mohamed
Yeah.
Kudus or Jared Bowen. Imagine what that man would do with them boys. God,
And the way he's got his
it's
young lad Miley
yeah,
playing, it's
yeah,
he's a fine player. There's no doubt, and I don't know if we've got anyone that young, that ready for the Premier League in our youth setup. But a huge part of what he's done for that young lad is to give him the confidence and show the faith in him. He's put
yeah,
him in the firing line, and that boy's just embraced his opportunity, hasn't he?
yeah. And like in the last window last summer, I think it was last summer or maybe the January window, when he was looking for an attacking player, he went to Everton and picked up young Anthony Gordon.
Yeah, what a signing he is as well, by the way.
But that's my point, Jeff. We all looked at him at Everton and thought, yeah, he'd probably be a journeyman for them. That's what I thought when I looked at Anthony Gordon. I thought he'll be great for Everton for the duration of his career. I thought he would be a one-team man, and never expected a club like Newcastle to go in for him. And he's been fantastic for them. He's got a lot of minutes there, and fair play to Eddie Howe, as you said. He recognised the talent, he's encouraged it, he's promoted it, and he's used it to his advantage. He's a great shout, actually, Eddie Howe. The more I think about it, the more I like it.
Well, I don't know if we would
And
get
he's
him.
homegrown.
Well,
He's
yeah, he's a
homegrown as
young
well.
British manager, so
Yeah,
English manager, so
yeah. I mean, to be fair, when you look at it the way we are at the moment, he's perfect for West Ham.
I think he's a really good
Absolutely
fit. But
down
there's
to
one big
earth.
question. One big question
What's that?
is, will he come and work for Sullivan?
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
the elephant in the room. But that
yeah,
doesn't just apply to Eddie Howe, right? That applies to any manager that we're likely to appoint.
yeah, yeah.
Like,
I suppose in some respects, I can kind of sympathise also with the white side of North London. I don't want to say their name, because they have a similar thing in what's his blinking name, Daniel Levy.
Levy.
Yeah, they have a similar thing in him, don't they? That a lot of the fan base are like mixed on whether they want him there or not, or whether they like him or not. But he don't seem to shy away from putting his hand in his pocket and going, all right, look, if that's what you want, do it. He's kind of been like that, hasn't he? He gets put into a corner, whereas David Sullivan, when he gets put into a corner, he turns into a stabbed rat. Do you know what I mean? He'll
Yeah,
fight and bite and chew his way out of it.
yeah, you're right. And there's
You
one
know?
big difference, though, between Sullivan and Levy, I think. I mean, Levy is really shrewd in the transfer market, and he doesn't sell
Well,
players
yeah,
on the cheap.
yeah, and it's not his
And
money either. It's not,
yeah,
yeah, and it's not
whereas
Levy's money either, is it?
we seem to pay top dollar for players and then sell them at bargain basement prices.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Philippe Anderson.
yeah, I mean, what a shame, Anderson. I mean, you had me on your show there
I
last
really
week,
liked
and
him.
we touched on him, and I think he had all the attributes to be a Premier League player. And I think in brief little windows, he showed his real talent. But I actually think he didn't fancy it. I think the Premier League was too much for him. I'm not sure if he was at another club, it would have made much difference, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I get you. And of course, he also had the added pressure of coming in immediately after Dimitri Payet had gone. And there was a lot of expectation on him being a Brazilian, etc., etc. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We all thought he was going to be the next Dimitri Payet, and that that might have been a bit too much pressure for the man because he could never perform at those levels. So
Then we talk
I
about.
think that. Yeah,
Go
go
on,
on.
Budgie, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I think sometimes we forget about the amount of pressure that's put onto these players. We tend to, because we're fans and we enjoy going and watching them at the weekend or midweek or whatever the case may be. We tend to forget how much they go through to get there for the weekend or for that Wednesday night game or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
They go through a lot, the training regime, the recovery regime, the media regime, and it's just endless for them. They get about 4 hours a day, of their awake hours. They get about 4 hours a day to themselves. That's it. Then they're sleeping. That they get about 4 hours, the poor buggers. Because if they're not on the training ground, they're in the media rooms or they're being invited into Ironcast or, I mean, there's just so much going on for them. And, I do feel for them, but they're paid so heavily, it's part of their job. And I think we sometimes forget how demanding their job is, though,
No, I
not
agree with that.
necessarily physically.
And also, we don't always know what's going on in the background, do we? I mean, if we cast our mind back, talking about things like that, to Mark Noble, who played for about 9 months needing an operation, but didn't take the operation and carried on playing all through that season. And there we were, slagging him off, right? Going, he's this and he's that, and he ain't what he was.
And he's giving the ball away. And
he got to the end of the season and he went and had his surgery, and you think, bloody hell, he was turning out every week and competing at the top level. And he wasn't really fit. So I think they do make sacrifices.
And that actually is, where Mark Noble rightly gets his, moniker from, Captain Fantastic or Mr. West Ham or whichever moniker you want to attach to that man. He's earned it, because of things like that. And because of times when he's been brought on, even, as far as sort of, not as far back, but as recently as during our first Europa campaign, he was coming on during during games, or he was starting games and he was affecting games. And we're talking about a man that should have stopped playing probably 2 or 3 years earlier.
Yeah.
And then went on to, to help us achieve European football again, as the captain.
He was absolute wonderful servant to this club, wasn't he? I mean, there's no question. And a wonderful, wonderful captain. And, well,
if anybody deserves a bloody statue outside that stadium, it's him.
Yeah. And we talk about captains, and here we are. What will we do for a Mark Noble as a captain now? I mean, you look at Zuma, who's been selected as our captain, and I think we're all scratching our heads about why is he captain. But if we look beyond him, I don't see too many captains on that pitch. I don't know how you view that, but I don't see too many leaders.
There's 2 on that pitch that I would point out straight away. Edson Alvarez.
But Alvarez wasn't here when Zuma was appointed captain. He wasn't here at the start of the season.
You're right. But now I would say Edson Alvarez and quite possibly Jared Bowen.
Yeah.
Well,
I think Jared Bowen
passionate He's got
He
the
absolutely
passion.
is. The only thing I'd say about Jared Bowen is I'm not sure it's a position where captains naturally are. I think you can be a
Yeah.
leader without an armband, and he's
Oh yeah.
definitely a
Yeah. Yeah.
leader
Yeah.
without an armband. But I
Yeah.
think
Yeah. I mean,
positionally
look,
wise,
you
Alvarez
go
is the
back
shout.
4 years. Yeah. Go back 4 years, Jeff. We had captains all over the pitch,
Yeah,
didn't we? Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
Four nows. Perfect. Um, you know, we had Declan Rice, Thomas Soucek. Now, I'm talking about when Thomas Soucek first came to the club. That might not have been 4 years ago. That might have been three. But you know what I'm saying is we had a captain in every single line of our players. You know, we had one in the forward line, we had one in the midfield at least, and at least one in the back four, and the goalkeeper Fabianski. Although
yeah.
he's
Not
not as
Bonner was
verbal.
playing regular, and he's got them sort of leadership qualities.
See,
Maybe
now I would have thought if
not now,
anybody had got the
but
yeah, I would have thought if anybody had got the club captaincy because he's being retained, I would have thought it would have been him. Even if he's not on-field captain, he would have been club captain.
yeah,
But you know, he's given it to the broken action man. You know,
yeah,
he has though,
yeah.
hasn't he? I mean, like them knees of his. I don't think either. I don't think he's got one knee between the two of them that
I don't
works.
think he
You
can
know,
go on much longer, can he?
no, and it's sad because he's such a damn good player. You know, normally when he's fit, when he's 100% fit, when he first came to us, he was fucking incredible. Oh, sorry, excuse me, but he was
No, you're
incredible.
right.
He was incredible. It's my first time swearing on here. I felt bad about it. But he was incredible when he first came to us. A lot of people, you know, what a decent defender does is he plays a good game under the radar. He's not looking for a man of the match or anything like that. He's just making sure that his goalkeeper and his net are protected. And that's what Zuma did. That's what he does
Yeah,
generally.
he's a proper
Now he's being
defender, isn't he?
yes, and now he's being asked to play out from the back with like one knee to two legs. It's not possible for him. He can't cope with that. That's why we're only getting one game a week out of him. You know, because he needs a replacement knee on both legs, I think. You know,
It's
give the man
amazing,
a
really,
bionic
because
knee.
if you said to me at the start of the season, one position that we didn't really need any cover, I would have kind of said, well, we've got plenty of centre backs, right? And
Yeah,
we've actually added another one in Dinos,
yeah.
and yet we still somehow look short of centre backs right now. How has that happened?
Well, it's because of things like, running Zuma into the ground and making his knees worse than they ever were. By playing him, in every match he could. That's where we go back to the management. That's where we go back to man management. And I don't believe that David Moyes has been particularly good at it since he's been at West Ham because he has, and many people say he's ruined this player, he's moised him, he's done this, he's done that. But what he has done is he's run his first 11 into the ground.
He
You
absolutely
know,
has.
we all wondered why the revelation that was our January signing in Jesse Lingard, we all wondered why he was brought in because of the links with David Moyes, clearly. But we also wondered why he chose Nottingham Forest over us when it came to the transfer window. Now, I believe it might have been because he wasn't prepared to play 90 minutes every 3 days for the manager, or he wasn't capable of playing 90 minutes every 3 days. And let's be fair, he would have wanted Lingard to play every minute he could.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think Lingard
Don't get me
made
wrong, the
an
money had a
error of
lot to do
judgment.
with it as well.
Well, I
The
don't know
money
if it
that he
was
got.
money or not, but if it was, it was. But I just think for footballing reasons, I think Lingard made a poor decision because he came to West Ham and he literally played the best 6 months of his career, wasn't it?
And, it's got to be up there. It's got to be up there with the best of his career, isn't it? Definitely. I mean, it's probably one of his most successful 6-month periods.
Yeah, I know he's away. Where else? I don't know. Where's he gone? Qatar or somewhere? I don't know. It seemed a strange outcome that, but there we are. That's old ground, isn't it?
He'd probably be back in Britain, cap in hand soon, like a few of them have been. You know, I don't want the money. I just want to play football at a decent level. All right, then, mate. Well, you go to the Championship then, because that's a decent level.
I think he's probably not going to play at the Premier League again, is he? If he were to return.
No, he's too old now. Anyway, 33 now, isn't he?
Yeah. Kind of gone off piece there a little bit. I don't know how we ended up talking about Jesse Lingard, but
that was me. I tend to do that. Don't worry, I can steer you around a puddle and still make you tread in shit.
Anyway, Budgie, we've been on, believe it or not, over 40 minutes now. Yep. So I guess we better start wrapping that up.
Half time, you mean?
Half time, yeah. We could do part 2, no problem. I'd love to have you back in the lounge, and definitely we'll do a part 2. Yeah. But I'd be really interested to see what the viewers think about what we've been talking about and our managerial suggestions, and if they've got any arguments for or against anything we've said, or they want to put their own suggestions forward. I'd love to see that in the comment section. Please keep it sensible, though. You can ask for Xabi Alonso or Jurgen Klopp or whoever you like, but let's be realistic about it. Let's try and keep it to people we might actually be able to attract and appoint. Yeah. And, well, please like and subscribe to the channel. And, well, we're bringing you some new content as soon as we can. And, well, part 2 of Budgie in the Lounge.
Yeah, mate.